In the previous session, we had a discussion for data structures. What data structures are? We have certain categories of data structures like arrays, linked list, stacks, queues, graphs, and binary tree, into which we can organize our data and we can operate them or update them very efficiently. So before moving ahead to the core data structure details, I need to discuss few basic notations or fundamental notations with you. So let's begin the session with fundamental notations. I hope you are well aware of all these. So first is data type. What is a data type? So when we are saying a data type is what? They are basically used within type systems which offer various ways of defining, implementing and using them. Basically, we are telling the compiler that we are using this type of value so that compiler can provide you the suitable memory space and you can work well with those. So we have various categories of data types, or we can say there are various types of data type like integer, we have float point number, then we have characters, string and boolean. So as you know, if we have integer, so we'll be defining integer as int, this is data type, this is variable name int a, and this is assignment of value. So basically with this notation we are telling the compiler that we are going to use a variable whose value is 5 and it is of integer type, and compiler will provide you 2 bytes to save the value of a, because integer value requires 2 bytes. Similarly, when we are working with floating values, that means the decimal values as in 2.5 or 2.6, such kind of values, they are considered as floating numbers, floating values. So if we are working with these kind of values, the compiler will provide you 4 bytes. With characters, it will provide you 1 byte and so on. So we have certain fixed set of bytes, the memory location that is allocated for particular type of data type, and we can allot the values accordingly. So I hope you all are well versed with data type. So almost all programming languages explicitly include the notations of data type. When you are working with C, C++, Java, Python, all have their specified categories or types of data types. Although different languages may use different terminologies, or maybe they are using different syntaxes, still they have various data types. Next, moving ahead, we have variables. Variables are what? Variables are the values which are being stored, which are varying over the time. When we are processing certain values, then their values change under execution. That is termed as variable. So they are used to label a particular value, as in if I am saying the value of B is 4, it is of integer type. So integer is the data type, B is the variable and 4 is the constant. B is variable. Why B is variable? Maybe under execution we are going to change the value of B. Let's say we are increasing the value by 1. So it will increase, it will change, it will vary. So that is why B will termed as variable. They also provide a way of labeling data with a descriptive name, so our programs can be understood more clearly by reader or ourselves. So when we are going to execute our data, our program should be highly readable. It should be understandable. So if we are denoting the variable like B is holding a value of 4. So this particular statement is having certain meaning. So this is how we are able to understand our program. So without variables, we cannot understand how the processings have been done. So we need the variables to label our data as well. It is helpful to think of variables as containers that hold information. Their sole purpose is to label and store data in memory. So B is used to label 4 here. We are labeling the value, the data 4 with B. So this will ultimately be helpful in storing the data into your memory. So this is how we can work with variables, and they are helpful in making the programs more understandable, more readable. So moving ahead, we have the terminologies constant and variable. So now, what are constants and what are variables? As simple as that, constants are the values that are not altered while execution. They remain the same. So they are termed as constants, and whose values are going to be changed while execution. They are termed as variables. So let's say, taking an example here, we are having, uh, let's say LB. LB is your variable who is holding certain data. Let's say it is holding the value 2 and it is of integer type. So LB is the variable which is holding certain value, and it is used to label the value 2. So if it is a global variable whose value is not changing, we are just using the value as it is, then it will be considered, the value of 2 will be considered as constant. It is not altering, we are just considering the value, we are referring the value, but we are not processing the value, we are not changing or updating the value of LB. So it will be considered as constant. And the other terminology here you can see is identifier. So identifier is what? With which we are going to identify our data. That means LB will be considered as your identifier because the data 2 is identified by using LB. Similarly, we are having a variable A whose value is 7.2. So here A is your identifier because it is acting as a label. It with A we are identifying the value 7.2. It is termed as identifier as well. Next we are having the concept of pointers. Now what are pointers? Like variables are holding a value, a data directly. Like if I'm saying A is a variable whose value is 2. So it is a variable. And if I am saying pointer will hold the value, the address of A. It will hold the address of A. So let's say if address of A is 1104. So the value will be P's value is 1104. It will hold the address of A. And when we want to access the value, that is, if we want to access to the value of variable we want to access by using the pointer, then we will make use of asterisk. By using the asterisk sign, we can access the value of A. So asterisk will return us the value 2, whereas P will return us the address of A. Asterisk will return us the value of A. Alright. So basically what pointers are? Pointers are just like variables who holds or saves the address of another variable. They are not holding the actual value, but they are holding the address of that particular data. So we similarly have data type for our pointers like integer or float. We have data types, and we have asterisk sign to access the values, and then we have variable name. So we have here asterisk P with variable name is, variable here is A. If we are saying that asterisk P equals to A, that will return us a value 2. So this is how we can make use of pointers. Pointers basically refer to address of another variable. So we can have the access to address of that variable. We can have the access to value of that particular variable. All right. So if anyone is having any kind of doubt as if now, you may ask, you can drop your query in the chat box. All right. So moving ahead, we have algorithms. Now, what are algorithms? What are algorithms? An algorithm is a set of well-defined instructions in a sequence to solve a problem. So when we have a certain problem, as in simply I want to add two numbers. I want to add two numbers. So let's say I want sum of A and B. This is the operation, this is the problem that I want to solve. I want to execute. So what will be the algorithm? It is a well-defined instructions in a sequence. So how we can sequence them? Firstly, step 1, we need to have the values of A and B. So we will input A and B. This is what we want. And also we will declare a variable let's say we will have sum, initial value of sum is equal to 0. So this is our initial inputs. Then step 2 will be I have to solve the problem. I will process S equals to A plus B. Then I will display the value, the result. We will simply print S. Alright, so S is holding the result of A plus B. We will print S, and then afterwards we will simply exit. This is a basic algorithm to add two numbers. We have to follow these 4 steps. We have to input two values, and we need a variable to calculate our result. We will store our result into the variable. then we will print the result and exit. So this is a sequence of instructions that we have to follow to get the sum of two variables. All right, so this is called algorithm. Let's look into some of the examples related to this. But before that, how we can consider a algorithm as a good algorithm? There are certain qualities of good algorithm. We have to input and output. The input and output should be defined precisely. All right. So as in the previous example, I have first step for inputting our variables. I have the third step for displaying the result. So they should be defined very precisely. Each step in the algorithm should be clear and unambiguous, means there should no duplicacy. The steps should be very much clear and to the point. There should not be repeating steps or duplicated steps into your algorithm. Then algorithms should be most effective among many different ways to solve a problem. We can reduce our set of instructions so that our algorithm can consume less memory or maybe less time to produce the results. So that will be considered as good quality of algorithm. So we must target that in minimal number of steps we can efficiently generate the results. And an algorithm shouldn't include computer code. Instead, the algorithm should be written in such a way that it can be used in different programming languages. So there should not be any core syntaxes, like you should not use the core syntax of Java or maybe C++ or C language. Rather, you must include easy readable general English language steps so that you can use these steps anywhere in any language. So these are certain qualities of algorithm which makes an algorithm a good algorithm. So next, moving ahead, let's look into another example. This is, I guess, the same example we had already discussed. We have to add two numbers which are entered by user. So you can check over here. We have step 1. Step 1 is saying what? We have to start. We have to start our steps, under which step 2 says we have to declare variable 1 and variable 2. Then we need to have another third variable to store our results. Afterwards, we have to input the values of two variables, as in num1, let's say it is holding the input 9, then num2 is having the value 2, so we want to add 9 and 2. So under fourth step we have to sum up, and we will store the result in third variable. So we will perform simply sum, which will be stored in s variable, or let's say sum variable. So 9 plus 2 will be stored in sum. So the result, that is 11, will be stored in sum. Alright. So this we will display, and sixth step here is to stop. Quite easy one. You can check this algorithm. If you want to write it, you can write. Otherwise, I'll share the PPT with you. Next, moving ahead, we have another example of algorithm here. We have to find the greatest number among three numbers. So let's say we have three numbers, A with value 2, B with value, let's say 6, and C with value 3. We have these three numbers and we want to find the largest among three. So let's check into the algorithm. What we have to do, we will, as a first step, we will start. Then we have to declare the variables. Declaration as in we have to intimate the compiler that whether they are of integer type, they are float type. So these values are integer values I am taking. So we will be declaring it as integer values. So we have three variables a, b, c that we have declared. Then we will read the values of for the variable. That means we will input the values of a, b, and c. So here under step 3, we will simply input the value of a as 2, b as 6, and c as 3. Then under step 4, we have to check for the values who's greater. So for that we will apply if structure. So if a is greater than b, here a is not actually greater than b, but if it is greater, then we will check whether a is also greater than c. If yes, it will display the result. But in our case, a is not greater than b, so else will be performed. Under else, we will display c is greatest. But here, because a is smallest number, it is not greater than b, it is not greater than c, then it will perform else, the main else. Then we will check if b is greater than c. If b is greater than c, in our scenario you can check yes, b is greater than c, then simply display b is largest. This will be our output. Else it will go to display C is the greatest one. So we will compare the three values. In first case, we will check whether A is greater than B. If A is greater than B, we will check it with C also. If it is greater than C also, then obviously A is greatest. But in our case, B is greater than C, right? So B is greater than C. That means first is already false. It is greater than C, then we have to stop the comparison because B is the greatest one. But if A is not greater than B and B is not greater than C, then simply means C is the greatest one. But in our scenario, we have B is the largest one. So it will simply display B is largest and it will stop. The last step is to stop. After displaying the result, it will stop. All right. So these are the certain algorithms, and in data structure, whosoever data structure we are using, we will perform all the operations and we will have to generate algorithm for every single operation. All right. So you should be very much clear in terms of algorithms. So if anyone is having any kind of doubt, you can ask here only, I can repeat. So moving ahead, we have advantages of algorithm. It is a stepwise representation of a solution to a given problem, which makes it easy to understand. We are very much crystal clear that these are the sequence of steps we have to follow to get the results or to solve a problem. So it is quite easy to understand. An algorithm uses a definite procedure. We have step 1, step 2, step 3, and we have to follow in a sequence. So this is a defined definite sequence or procedure to solve to get the results. It is not dependent on any programming language, so it is easy to understand for anyone even without programming knowledge. We can easily understand, or a layman even can have an idea of what the solution or the procedure could be. Because if the syntax will be involved, then only the programmers can understand, no one else. So because we are not using the programming syntaxes or hardcore codes into algorithm, so it is quite understandable and readable. So every step in an algorithm has its own logical sequence, so it is easy to debug. We can trace or we can debug, we can track the errors, or maybe if certain instruction is not producing the expected result, we can have a check, we can trace it from. And by using algorithm, the problem is broken down into smaller pieces or steps. Hence, it is easier for programmer to convert it into actual program. We have crystal clear instructions, as in step one, step two, where we are inputting, where we are making the decisions, where the output is. So it is been divided into certain pieces or steps. So coding from algorithm is quite easy and effective. And we have to face certain disadvantages of algorithm as well. Algorithm is time consuming. We have to plan, we have to reduce for the steps, and we have to check whether it is producing the effective results or not. So it is a time consuming process. But yes, after algorithm is defined, then coding is quite easy. But initially we have to spend lots of time for planning and generating algorithms. It is difficult to show branches and loops in algorithms. They can create certain confusions. Big tasks are difficult to put in algorithm when we are having lots of modules, or maybe the nesting is there. So they are quite difficult to uh, organize into algorithm. So these are few disadvantages that we have to bear and overcome when we are dealing with algorithms. So guys, this is all for today's session. And if anyone is having any kind of doubt, you can ask.